What is going on, you average gamers? As always, of course, I hope you're all having a fantastic day. Now, of course, by the title, I'm sure you guys can see that I'm going to rant about the things that I'm not the biggest fan of in God of War Ragnarok. But before I talk about any of that, I want to talk about at least some of the good things that I absolutely love. The first thing I want to talk about is the combat. The next thing I'll talk about is, of course, the story. But there's a few things I want to point out in the combat in this game. When I first started to play this game, which I played this game on release day on 12 a.m., I am a huge fan. So I was going in already with a super biased opinion based off of how I felt with the original game. And my first instincts immediately was to pretty much erase how I felt about the other game, but hold on to what I've learned, if that makes any type of sense. What I'm trying to say is, don't go into this game thinking it's going to be like the 2018 one, or it's going to be how you feel it's going to be, okay? They make their own decisions, and it's very clear. Now, there are a lot of questionable ones, but that's not something I'm going to talk about right now. I'll talk about it later in the video. The things again that I want to talk about first is the combat. Now that, as I brought up before, when you first play this game, you have to kind of go in with an open mind. You can't sit here and go, okay, the combat's going to be just like the 2018 God of War, because that is not true. One of the first things I started to appreciate is how they incorporated the runic attacks from the 2018 God of War, and they put them in as skills in this game. So you can hold R1 to do a move that might look similar to something you had to have equipped in the previous God of War. As somebody that was pretty much addicted to precision throwing or realm shift slowdowns in the previous God of War, where you would hit a perfect timing to slow down time or recall your axe and throw it again and then do it one more time and watch this animation, you know, I feel like those animations feel so good that that's kind of what we think of when it comes to the difference in combat, because in this game you kind of have to know more of what you're doing rather than just being good mechanically. They put a lot more emphasis on blocking or burning, freezing, how damage works in this game. It's not just stat based. For example, the armor that I have equipped, anytime that I block, parry, get hit, or use my fist in combat, I have a high chance, I think it's a high chance, or a moderate chance, I'm not entirely sure, but to poison the enemy. Now if they're poisoned, I can do increased damage to them, melee damage. So recall my axe, blades, whatever it is, and just go crazy. That is the things that I do appreciate about this game, because you can watch an enemy's health bar go from yellow, meaning that they're a little bit higher level than you, to green, and in those seconds of when it's green, you can just apply so much damage, and I appreciate that. Of course, there's a bunch of other builds, whether they're cooldown, high stun builds, high damage builds. One of my favorites that I talked about in a previous video is a below 50% damage build, because you can stun and damage like crazy, and it's insane, and you can just keep getting your rage back from stunning these enemies and executing them. I will end up making videos about this, right? But I'm waiting just for New Game Plus to come out. I really am, because I feel as if it can showcase the armor a lot better than me just beating the crap out of people in Niflheim or Muspelheim. The next thing that I do like when it comes to combat is the enemies in this game. Now, the new ones, of course, are super fun. Some of them can be madly frustrating, especially on Give Me God of War, because I feel like everything in this game has a goddamn projectile. Like, just leave me alone, okay? Like, please. I don't want to sit there blocking. But like I said, they put a huge emphasis on blocking. So, it's just something I have to get used to. I got so used to the New Game Plus in the previous God of War, where I could just realm shift everything, just dodge everything, and even do that teleport glitch where if you dodge perfectly after somebody threw something at you, you would parry it, and then you would just, you know, hold R2 with your axe and that type of stuff, right? If you feel that same way, you have to erase that from your brain, but I guess just for at least right now, because I don't know how New Game Plus will work. Anyway, I'm gonna keep getting distracted. I apologize. This is what happens to me all the time. I just fall apart. There's just so much to talk about. Back on the subject of the enemies you fight in this game, there are, again, a lot of new ones that will give you a challenge, and a lot of old ones that will give you a challenge. One of the ones I appreciate was the dual wielding Draugr. something that was just a regular enemy in the previous game is now a boss type of enemy with new moves. And again, just the way combat works in this game, it can give you an interesting fight. I remember getting so frustrating at my timing in this game for parrying that I just went out and tried the big shield. For anyone that doesn't know, that really big shield that blocks pretty much everything but red attacks is really, really good. And I recommend it for anybody if you're not good at timing things. I was having a really bad day. And enemy attacks in this game are different. The timing wise is different, and I do like that. It's a whole new learning curve. I don't want to play the same game, right? I put so much time into the previous game that, again, I appreciate the difference. And I'm not one to really like change, but I think this was well needed. I love how they put emphasis on freezing your enemies or burning them. You can do a lot more damage. Even the arrows can do this huge explosion. Or, again, the stun builds. They put a huge emphasis on stun builds, I'm telling you, okay? Because even the weapon you get does a bunch of stun damage, and there's certain amulets you can get that if an enemy is status afflicted, it does a huge burst damage of that status affliction. So like burn or frozen or frost, I guess. So basically you can just freeze everyone else around you as you're just beating the shit out of just one single enemy. It's pretty dope. Now, I'm not trying to throw any shade at the previous God of War game by any means. I am a huge fan of it, right? But it is super nice not spam punching just because it became muscle memory. Like, I like that they kind of took it out. At first, I was like, oh, it's sad, I'm gonna miss it. But I quickly got over it because there's so many other moves in this game that if you sit here and try to get better at, like, really other than just working on your moves and your dodging and stuff like that, you can become really good. It took me an entire playthrough to even figure out how to use the hex arrows, those purple arrows you get, really effectively. An entire playthrough. I just used the sonic arrows because, again, the stun damage is insane. The last thing that I want to talk about when it comes to the combat in this game is, at first I thought the runic attacks were very underwhelming, especially compared to the previous God of War game, where you had stuff like the Hell's Touch, even though that's in this game, it is a watered down version, or Glaive Storm. In that game, in the previous game, that was insane. It was like a Thor simulator, even though you had an axe. Well, I guess you're still Thor pretty much. You're just throwing that thing and it's hitting everybody in the battlefield, and it just comes back to you and you just catch it and you can keep swinging. Like, it's pretty cool. Like, I like that. And even though there's something like that in this game, it's nowhere near as strong, just based off of, again, how the combat works, where it's not stat based, it's skill based pretty much. Like, and by skill based I don't mean like you being really, really good at the game. I mean like you have to use the skills that you get throughout the game to be more effective. Anyway, as I kept playing this game, I really started to appreciate all the runic attacks, because I started to realize it's more me than the game, where even the runic attacks that take 30 seconds or like 5 minutes, it feels like, to go off, it's like, yeah, they're cool, but I'm getting hit from every side. It's like I'm not using them correctly. A lot of them can do a crazy amount of damage, frost damage, or burn damage, which then you can use your hex arrows and just burn everything else around you. Again, it's combo based. Like, you have to do more than just one thing, and that's the stuff that I like, because it's a whole new learning curve. Like, the game on the surface might look almost the exact same, and it might be, but it's not really. And a lot of people might hate that, but you know, as somebody that always hated change, I kind of welcome this one. And now for the juicy meat of this entire video, the story. Now, I could talk about it all day, whether it was what actually happened, what I thought was going to happen, the decisions that I thought should have been changed. But one thing that I want to point out is it doesn't matter what I think or what I feel like should have happened, nor does it matter what you think, right, for a game to be good. Just because if we have these visions of, again, what should have happened, that we have this, I guess, false idea. It's like, oh, that would have made the game better. That doesn't mean that would have made the game better. You know, the decisions that they made just because they disagree doesn't make the game bad. The biggest example I could give of this is, as much as I hate this, I promise you, I'm going to compare this to The Last of Us 2. When Joel dies, I hated it. I didn't want to play the game, right? I was like, dude, what type of stupid stuff is this? Like, you just killed my father. You know, like, that's how I felt. I just felt personally attacked. But if you look at the picture of it, what they were trying to paint is, I was mad uncomfortable. You know, and now I'm all alone. Like, that's how I felt. And it was like, what? Just, I was so confused. And they took the huge risk. And at first it didn't pay off because I was like, oh, dude, this, I hate it, right? But to me, in hindsight, I was like, dude, like, at least they were willing to try something that nobody else was ever willing to dare try. And that's to kill off their most famous character. When it comes to Ragnarok, I already formed an opinion in my head that Kratos was going to die just based off of what happens in the previous game, and then of course what happens in this game. You know, I thought that he was going to use his blades to blow up Asgard, or as he's getting his fucking ass kicked by Odin and Thor because them two together are just too powerful or something like that, that he just explodes out of like the burst of rage and just blows up Asgard and just saves everybody, and like that's, you know, that's the ending to it. I know that might sound anticlimactic, but what happens at the ending of this game, in my opinion, is stupid anticlimactic. How are you going to be thrown around in the first hour of this game by Thor, going to different areas throughout Midgard, creating a frozen lightning bolt, and then you meet him again, and then you just absolutely annihilate him? You know, like, easy, one and done, nothing, like, that's it. And like one of my viewers pointed out, he commented saying that here's a guy that killed all the Jotnar and sent Jormungandr back in time, and he just dies from Odin's spear. And there's no like reason why Odin did that. It's not like Thor was betraying him. He literally stopped fighting for like 2 seconds, and Odin popped up like, why'd you stop fighting? Are you talking? Oh, you're dead now. Like, I was like, okay. And then you immediately start fighting Odin in this giant circle that splits up in fours, and you're jumping across. I'm like, dude, what is this? Like, as much as a old school, like God of War 2 type of vibes I was getting, that was way too old school of a fight for me. You know, I was like, no, like something more needs to happen. Like, where's the tricks up his sleeve? He's better, you know, resurrect a giant or something like Freya did. Like, she taught you some of her magic. Let me see something. And you just pummeled this guy, and I'm just, I don't know. I was so fucking disappointed with that fight. Mimir even makes a remark to Atreus in the first game when Atreus is being overconfident and cocky, saying that, oh, we can defeat all the Aesir, no problem. And Mimir's like, no, lad, not yet. You know, we need more time. I felt like that was supposed to be a realization of how powerful the Aesir is. And it's just like, where? Like, show me where. I was just so madly confused. And in the first game where you get to see Kratos do all these crazy things, lift up boulders, move Tyr's bridge, walk through the light of Alfheim. And in this game, the closest thing he gets is to what, like holding Thor's hammer for half a second. I mean, he casually lists all these other things, but there's no emphasis on it. You know, like, you just do it, like, you just move it out of the way. And it's just like, I don't know. Like, again, with Tyr's bridge, they made that a big deal for a reason. Like, you're moving this giant metal bridge, this temple, and in this lake. And I was like, wow, like, again, this happens early on in the game, and it's a perspective thing of going, wow, this dude is really, really, really strong still. Since I feel like I'm absolutely dogging on the story, I'm going to talk about the things that I do love and the things that changed my mind. So I'm not a huge lovey-dovey good ending type of person, especially in video games. I kind of like dark endings, like The Last of Us 1. You see what I'm saying? And again, like The Last of Us 2 start, as much as I hate it, I do kind of appreciate it now. I like risks, right? And I feel like they could have taken a big risk, but they didn't have to, and then they show that throughout this game. I mean, you become the champion of the Jotnar, the thing that they predicted throughout the entire adventure, the entire journey. Like, they knew it was going to be Kratos, and that like he was going to change his ways for his son, and like it's a beautiful story. It really is beautiful in that aspect, and it's not like it made me cry or nothing like that, but it made me appreciate just how they went with things. You know, it made me open my mind, like, okay, like it didn't have to be the way I wanted it for me to enjoy the game. Like, I enjoyed the game a lot, and I don't know. I wish things were a little bit different, of course, but I think with time that we will appreciate it. You know, we just waited 4 years, and I feel like we were just so ambitious. We had these ideas in our head, and it just wasn't what we were expected. you're expecting, excuse me. But again, like I keep saying, that's not a bad thing. Like I think we just have to keep sitting here and being open-minded about just these newer games that come out, you know, because unanimously we all agree that this game is beautiful, right? Like they worked on so many good things. Like the game isn't, it's not super rushed. Like as rushed as the story is, the scenery around you, the side missions you go through, the dialogue in this game, it's all there. You know, I just feel like they didn't want this game to be like an 80-hour game, but I would have played it. I would have played an 80-hour game. But most people aren't me. I had this platinum trophy by Saturday, by the way. Okay, like the game came out Wednesday, had that shit by Saturday. I was determined to just enjoy my time with the game. You know, I put 45 hours into that game in like 4 days, and as exhausted as I was just too eager to play the game. Like I said, I was having a good time. The story was like crack. It was so freaking addicting, dude. Oh my goodness, like that's the shit that kept me going. And you know, of course I appreciated the combat, and then you take your time with the game, and then you come across the new weapon, you're like, what the fuck, you know? Because to me, I was like, oh, I guess I'm near the end of the game, because I almost had both my weapons upgraded, like fully upgraded, and I was like, you know, I guess this is pretty much it. I was expecting some sort of like, you know, reveal, and then they gave the spear. At first, of course, I was like, oh, we're gonna get Thor's hammer, and again, a little bit disappointed, but I'm glad they didn't do that, you know, because that's not Kratos as much as we think that it's going to be. It's just not him. Now, I do wish that this fucking beefy man, okay, Kratos would have at least picked up Thor's hammer out of just sheer fucking rage and just threw it or something. Not even be worthy of wielding it. Just be an insane freak. You know, like that's what I wanted to see. Like, I don't know. You know, I'm sure a lot of people were kind of expecting that, but it doesn't mean it's a bad thing. You know, it's like waiting for Captain America to say Avengers Assemble. Like, we're all waiting for it, and as soon as it did, 98% of us got chills. You know what I'm saying? So long story short, pretty much, is the difference like the difference between Red Dead 1 and Red Dead 2? You know, is the ending going to make grown men cry? Because I fucking, dude, Red Dead 2 had me, I'm not gonna say ballin', but dude, when that music's going and you're riding on your horse and it's just you hear all the quotes from the game and you have all that high honor, dude. I don't think another game will ever be like that ever again. I'm telling you, right? But for a game that went in a direction I wasn't, you know, as excited for, I do appreciate it. You know, and I'm sure like 5 years from now I'm gonna look back and be like, you know what? I do like it. You know, I like that Kratos is still alive. I like that he can have his own story, and he has a happy ending because he deserves a happy ending. My favorite quote in this game by far, and it's not even close, which is crazy because the dialogue in this game is next level. The voice acting in this game is beyond next level. I can go on and talk about all the great things in this game. But when you get the hilt after defeating all the gravestones, so all the ghost type of enemies, which are kind of like the Valkyries from the previous game, you know how you gotta hunt them down. You get this hilt, this sword, which is awesome. It is so cool. But Mimir makes a remark saying that you can't use that sword because it is like the essence of pure evil. It is just too bad. It'll just give you like bad vibes pretty much. And Kratos was like, well, then I'll use it for good, and then the future generations can decide if my good deeds outweighed the bad. And I'm like, okay. And I feel like that's the image that they're trying to create for Kratos. You know, as much as we want this Pantheon destroyer, I feel like it would have taken away from this realization that yes, he is still very much this god of war, but he's also now a god of peace. You know, somebody that has destroyed so much is able to end up finding a family again. You know, like he's this monster that feels like he'll never be deemed worthy, right? And here are people accepting him. I like that. Anyway, that will do it for my video. I really hope that you appreciated it. Comment down anything that you guys want. I'm excited to talk to you guys about pretty much anything. It doesn't even have to be about this game, to be honest. Anyway, I love y'all, and I hope you guys enjoy. Peace.